Well, this is a surprise to be back together again.
I think we should explain who we are. We are Holmes
and Holliday. You will understand why we chose to call ourselves that rather than the other way around. Holiday Homes has a totally different connotation. Although this year, I think everybody is longing for a holiday, either at home or abroad. Anyway, why are we resurrecting this duo?
Well, resurrecting is the good word to use at this time of year, it being Easter, but we won't go into that.
Well, why not?
Well, let's start at the very beginning.
Now, that is a very good place to start, according to Julie Andrews. But I suppose since you are from the church, you mean Genesis. Of course, the book, not the group.
I didn't intend to go back that far, but it is a word that could help us in our story.
So what story are we going to tell? Because here I am, sitting comfortably.
We've been invited to take part in the Hearth event about being kind and mindful.
Hang on, my mind is already full of fog from all of these lockdowns the government keeps giving us. Are you actually going to enlighten me about why we are here? When I ask why we are here, I don't want some existential philosophical answer. You didn't know I could use such big words, did you?
No, I didn't. Let's continue. As I was saying about the spring event created by the Hearth, in which we've been invited to participate, we're going to explain why Horsley Village Church is part of the Hearth. In truth, really, it was the originator. The genesis of the idea came from the church. We are telling the story of how the Hearth became. I base that title on the stories that Ted Hughes wrote for children. So it will be a simple story. We both know there's been a place of worship on this site since 1662.
Yes, I've read that sign on the church.
Well, it wasn't actually a church back then, but a meeting place. The vicar of Ovingham, Thomas Trewent, was ejected.
Hang on a minute, how old was he?
I don't know, but if you really want to know, I could find out.
Well, I just wanted to make sure he wasn't jumping the queue.
Pardon? What queue are we talking about?
Well, you know, the queue to get his injection. Is he classed as a key worker?
No. Ejected, not injected. This is getting far too complicated. Let's move on. He started to hold meetings here in Horsley because he was not allowed to have services in his church in Ovingham. He was classed as a nonconformist. He wouldn't obey the rules set down by the Act of Uniformity, introduced by the government.
So was it a crime in those days not to wear your uniform? I think that was probably a bit too harsh. Do you think the congregation got him by the scruff of the neck and ejected him for not wearing his surplice and his dog collar?
No, not at all. The records say they were very sympathetic towards him. And although he was forced to leave the Church of England, they didn't report him to the authorities when he came to preach in Horsley.
Okay then, so where did they actually hold these services?
In the Hearth at night. These were clandestine services.
In the cafe? Do Jarvis and Alana know about this?
We're talking about 350 years ago, so Jarvis and Alana were not around then. The Hearth building was a private house, and the secret meetings were held in the attic.
Oh, I'm really confused now.
Well, it doesn't take much, does it? Go on.
Why didn't they just meet in the church next door?
I thought you said you'd read the plaque on the church wall. It wasn't built until 1900. There was a church building there before the one you see today. In fact, it looked very much like the Hearth building, but it was knocked down and rebuilt.
So, if that is now the church, what did the other building become? Was that when it became a cafe and an arts centre?
No, we're not quite there yet. It was the minister's home, then it became the caretaker's house, and eventually it stood empty for a number of years.
So go on then, what happened next?
Well, we come to that word, resurrection.
But buildings don't die and come alive again.
Well, this one was deteriorating and was revived by a new idea to revitalise the redundant building.
How then? Why? And when?
Well, that's a lot of questions. As my distant relative Sherlock might say, elementary, my dear Holliday. I think you may have the clues to this investigation. Don't be coy. Whose idea was it to have art studios?
Well, I might have mentioned it at a meeting.
Inspiration. Divine or otherwise, it turned out well. Now, can I ask, why call it the hearth?
Well, you've only got to look at the word. What do you see? Go on, use your deductive powers, Sherlock.
I see heart and art.
Well done, you. We brought art to the heart of Horsley. Artists took up residence in the studios. There were music events and there were talks. Art courses were organised, and of course the cafe opened.
The hearth also conjures up a picture of a fireplace, somewhere to gather round and be safe. Do you remember the initial problems we had with that name?
Yes, you mean when we put in a Google search, up popped all the firms selling fireplaces and related stuff. The number of times in those early days we had to Google it to pull it up the list so that it came up immediately.
And look at it today. Where once an ejected minister preached, artists use their skills to be creative. Where once worshippers gathered, food is served and friendships made. Where once children and adults met to learn in the schoolroom, now other courses are taught. The church still exists. The people still worship. And we pray for those who work here and those who visit. We believe in that resurrection power and not just the buildings.